Elara Vance didn't trust satellites. They were called distant observers, capturing pixels of green and brown from the safety of space. They could unsmell the damp rot of ancient moss or feel the vibrational hum of a forest holding its breath. To truly know a place to map it before it died, one had to bleed on the briars. She stood on a ridge overlooking the Valdivian temperate rainforest, or what was left of it. Behind her lay the gray line, not a metaphor, but a literal scar on the earth. A flat, dusty expanse of asphalt, logging roads, and prefabricated housing. It smelled of diesel and wet concrete. Before her lay the Emerald Deep, the last unmapped sector of the southern continent, a pocket of wilderness that had somehow evaded the Surveyor S drone and the Logger S chainsaw until now. Elara adjusted the strap of her heavy leather satchel. Inside were her tools, a brass, sextant waterproof India ink, and a thick roll of vellum. In an age of LiDAR and real-time GPS, Elara was an anachronism. She didn't just record coordinates. She recorded the soul of the geography. "You have 3 weeks, Elara." Her contractor's voice echoed in her memory. "The heavy machinery arrives on the 1st of the month. Whatever isn't on paper by then doesn't exist." She checked her mechanical field watch, ticking relentlessly. She wasn't here to stop the machines. She wasn't an activist. She was a witness. Her job was to create the obituary of a world about to be erased. She stepped off the ridge and descended into the green. The first day was a fight. Ferns as tall as doorways lashed at her legs, and the canopy was so thick that noon looked like twilight. Every 500 yards, she'd stop, drive a stake into the soft loam, check her compass, and draw. She sketched the curvature of roots that snaked over the ground like the veins of a titan. She noted the specific shade of lichena, bioluminescent teal, that only revealed itself in the deep shade. Maps, to most people, were tools. To Elara, they were portraits. By the 3rd day, the noise of the gray line had faded. It was replaced by the great hush, a silence composed of a million tiny noises. The rustle of a beetle, the drip of condensation, the wind moving through pine needles. She found a river not on any satellite feed, bursting from a limestone archway into a crystal-clear pool. She named it the Weeping Vein. As she sat sketching, a creature emerged from the ferns. A deer, but its antlers were covered in velvet that matched the moss of the trees, a perfect camouflage. It looked at her with eyes that held no fear, only a profound, ancient curiosity. Elara held her breath. If she moved, it would flee. If she didn't sketch it, no one would know it had ever existed. She sketched furiously, capturing the slope of its neck and the intelligence in its gaze. When the deer bounded away, Elara felt a pang of grief, so sharp it nearly brought her to her knees. This creature had evolved over millennia to fit perfectly into this specific puzzle of trees and water. In 3 weeks, its home would be a parking lot for a strip mine. She labeled the drawing the Ghost Stag of Sector 4. Week 2 brought a deluge that turned the earth into a slurry. Elara pushed deeper into the center of the sector. The topography became strange, dreamlike. She mapped a valley where flowers bloomed only at night, releasing a scent like burnt sugar and ozone. She charted a canyon where the wind howled through natural rock flutes, creating a mournful melody. She called it the Singing Canyon. The isolation began to weigh on her. There is a specific loneliness that comes from being the only human in 100 miles. It is terrifying and liberating. She was the first human to see these rock formations, and likely the last. One evening, while inking the contours of a ridge, she found a stone marker, ancient and moss. Scraping it clean, she saw it wasn't a boundary marker. It was a grave, but not for a human. Rough pictographs depicted a wolf-like creature, a shrine to a companion, carved perhaps centuries ago. This land had a history. It wasn't just resources. It was a library of stories, and the bulldozers were coming to burn it down. On the 17th day, the ground shook. Thud, thud, thud. The heartbeat of the invasion. Scrambling up a tree, spyglass to her eye, she saw them, yellow mechanical beasts, tearing through the tree line. The gray line was advancing, faster than predicted. They were early. Panic seized her. She hadn't finished the western quadrant. There was a grove there. Trees, she suspected, were the oldest living things on the continent. She needed 2 more days. She packed her gear with frantic speed, abandoning everything but her maps, ink, and water. She ran, not away from the danger, but parallel to it, racing the machines. The forest seemed to know. The birds were silent. She reached the grove at sunset. It was a cathedral of trees with silver bark that shimmered in the fading light. Their branches interlocked, forming a ceiling that blocked out the sky. Elara collapsed at the base of the central tree, exhausted and bleeding, but pulled out her vellum. "I see you," she whispered. "I am witnessing you." She worked through the night by headlamp, measuring the trunks, mapping the complex network of fungi connecting their roots, drawing the texture of the bark. As dawn broke, the roar of the engines was deafening, the smell of diesel overpowering everything. A massive yellow bulldozer broke through the trees 100 yards away. The driver saw only board feet of lumber, only a quota. Elara stood. She rolled the vellum tight, placed it in a waterproof titanium tube, and sealed Italiano. Placing her hand on the silver bark of the central tree, she said, "I'm sorry. I captured your likeness. It's all I can save." 3 months later, New York City. The Museum of Natural History, the Hall of Lost Geographies. Elara stood before a glass case. Inside lay her map, beautiful and precise. Here lies the weeping vein, where the water sings. Here stands the grove of silver giants, guardians of the West. Here was the sighting of the ghost stag. A group of school children shuffled in, and here, their guide said, is the map of the Silva Eterna sector. It was fully developed for agricultural use last fall. This map is the only record we have of its original topography. A young boy pressed his face against the glass. "It looks like a fantasy world," he whispered. "It does," the guide said, checking his phone, "but it was real." Elara watched them. She had succeeded. The data was safe, but as she looked at the intricate lines representing a waterfall, now a drainage pipe, and a grove, now a stack of plywood, she realized the terrible truth. A map is not the territory. A map is a tombstone. She walked out into the gray, concrete canyons of the city, clutching her empty hands. The wild was gone, trapped under glass and ink, leaving the world a little quieter, a little flatter, and infinitely more lonely. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more tailies from the edges of our world.